Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome back to the Onyx Tavern vlog series on Shuriken Sentai Ninninger. I'm your host, Rick the BARKEEP, and today we're going to be talking about Shinobi number 7, Spring Ninja Festival. Now, I think the main thing everybody's focused on for this episode is that it is an anniversary episode for the Super Sentai franchise. Now, it actually did not air on the 40th anniversary. That was pushed back due to real-world events. But nonetheless, it is an anniversary episode. And before we actually talk about the episode itself, I actually like the way that they did this. Because keep in mind, most Super Sentai team-ups or anniversary specials are relegated to DVD releases, motion picture releases, extended movies, whatever you want to go ahead and call them. They're not typically placed into an episode format. And as far as I can go ahead and tell, within recent memory, this is an instance in which they had the anniversary within a singular episode. And as far as I can tell as well, this is also where it ties into the overall plot. And what do I mean by that? Consider for a moment that Forever Red, which was an episode of Power Rangers Wild Force, really did not tie in at all to the overarching themes or storyline that was happening in Wild Force at the time. You could honestly take Forever Red out and skip it, and you don't lose anything. You don't gain anything, but you also don't really lose anything. But in this episode, what I like is that not only do we have an anniversary episode, which features two past Sentai heroes, 3, and we'll get to that here at the end, but it actually begins, or continues, however you want to go ahead and look at it, a plot point which I believe is going to be relevant to the later arc of the story or something that's going to be happening throughout the season. Specifically, the retrieval of the finishing Shuriken. So let's go ahead and talk about what happens in the episode, and I'll list all the points I have with it. So basically, the Ninninger, they get 2 guest professors coming in to go ahead and help them. Sasuke, who is Ninja Red from Kaku Ranger, and Shina, who is Hurricane Red from Hurricaneger. Now, I have not seen Hurricaneger nor, Kaku Ranger, so I'm not really going to comment on them as characters, because I don't know if they're acting in character, if they've changed any, or anything like that. All I can go ahead and say is that for somebody who is a Sentai and Power Ranger fan, it's great visually seeing the costumes in action again, and as a Sentai fan, I would say it's just kind of interesting that they did get the original actors back to play these characters, as opposed to, saying, recasting or anything like that. But again, I'm not going to comment on them as characters, because I don't know who they are as characters. This episode, they could have gotten the characterizations completely wrong, but I don't know it. So again, I'm not going to go ahead and say anything about it. And so they teach the Ninninger, some new techniques, teach them what it means to be ninja, which that's something that's still kind of odd to me, because I'm starting to realize more and more that this series in particular is not doing a good job of explaining what a ninja is. Now, the main difference between Ninja Red and Hurricane Red and the Ninninger philosophy is that for the Kaku Ranger and the Hurricaneger, being a ninja means to be invisible, to cut down evil behind the lines where nobody can go ahead and see you. Granted. Which I believe is the actual definition of a ninja, or what ninja is supposed to be. But as we've established in Ninja, they don't hide. They rampage, wasoi, or whatever it is. That's basically their part of their catchphrase, is that we don't hide, we're out there in the open, and we're going to go ahead and take you down. Now, they kind of argue and debate this philosophy just a little bit, but the episode doesn't actually get into what really ninjas are. Now, granted that the target audience is Japanese, I would still like a little bit of a history lesson there as to what it actually means to be a ninja. Because I'm going to be quite honest, based on what I know of a ninja, I don't think that any of them would be wearing bright white, red, blue, yellow, pink, anything like that. I mean, that's just not ninja, and a lot of the things that they do are not ninja either. So a good explanation of what ninja is and what it means to be ninja would be very refreshing within this series, and I wish they could go ahead and explain it later on, and this would have been the perfect opportunity to do that, but they didn't do that at all. So they go ahead and begin to train the Ninja and how to be ninja, teach them some new techniques and stuff like that. And they grade them. They give them report cards at the end. And per usual, Takaharu is the worst. This episode goes out of its way to point out how bad he is at doing this. And sadly, the episode really does revolve around Takaharu. I mean, again, I think we're 7 episodes in. I think we had 4 solid episodes that are dedicated to Takaharu as a character, learning something, or something like that. It's just the biggest criticism people are giving about Ninninger right now, and what's actually turning people away from Ninninger to where they don't even want to watch it, is the character of Takaharu. Because, you know what? I'm just going to come out and say it. Takaharu is kind of a dumbass. You know, he doesn't study very hard. He's headstrong. He wants to be a ninja. All this importance is placed on him. He's the most powerful, but the most undisciplined, which is stuff we've seen before, but it is kind of getting out of hand on how half the series thus far is focusing on him as a character, and without him, the others fail. This is what I talked about in the last podcast. And here, because he's got such a low grade, you know, the other ninja leaders, the other Red Rangers, won't let him go out to go ahead and fight the monster because they don't think he's ready. Now, they have an ulterior motive, but to be honest, that's the core of the problem right there. He's not good enough, and he doesn't really learn anything. Yeah, he learned about teamwork from his grandfather, but beyond that, he really isn't changing as a character. He's still the same. And yes, the other characters are that way too, but also we've had 1 episode to focus on each of them, with the exception of Fuka, who still hasn't gotten an episode dedicated to her yet. And their personalities are fine, but Takaharu, his is the most problematic, given, again, his personality, the fact that he's not learning anything, that he's the worst student, and again, all the focus is being thrown on him right now. Again, Gabe is focused on him only. He's not focused on finding any of the other characters, just focusing on him directly. So it is very bothersome, and this episode does highlight that, but it's not as irksome as you may think. Because, okay, so here's what happens in the overall plot, is that one of the Shurikens turns a watch into a cat watch monster, which has the ability for time travel. And they're using this monster to go back in time to the year 2005 to locate the finishing Shuriken, so they can bring it back to the past, or bring to the future, so it's no longer a threat to them. During the time in which the monster goes back in time, Takaharu follows them into the past, where supposedly, and this is, I guess, retconned, or this is what happened in history, in 2005, that monster started killing a bunch of ninjas, or attacking ninjas, in order to find this Shuriken. And of course, Sasuke and Shia, they fought him with the help of Takaharu as he came into the past. And then Takaharu supposedly died, and so it starts this whole time paradox thing of going where, you know, they actually end up meeting the Ninninger, giving him a low grade, obviously because he deserves it, and tries to restrain him from going. Again, not just because he's a bad student, but because if he goes, he's going to go ahead and die. So again, it's a weird time travel paradox thing that's going on here. And the thing is, what happens with Takaharu that's really bothersome here is that he shows in the classroom he can't do these things. Again, he's the worst student, yet the most powerful, again, the most undisciplined. And yet, he's able to escape death because he used one of the techniques that he learned but could not fully pull off within class, which is why, again, he got a failing grade. And everybody's like, how the heck did you do that? And he's like, I'm better in doing it than in practice, is pretty much what he said. If I do it in battle, I can do it. If I just practice it, I'm not so good at it. Which, again, here's the thing. When I see that they bring in 2 veteran Sentai Rangers who've been to hell and back, basically, and they're trying to teach the young up-and-coming pups, you know, how to be a ninja, how to be Sentai, and all that kind of stuff, I did not expect the episode to end with a young pup rubbing it in the veteran's face as like, yeah, you failed me, but I'm much better than you think. I am really good at this. Because that's really irksome, because if you don't like Takaharu already, this is going to make you hate him more. And it's not that I hate him. It's just, again, everything I mentioned, it's just really bothersome. It's just really irksome that this is what we're getting. So not only does he live, but he gets to be smug about it and everything. And the, past Red Ranger's just like, whatever, no big deal. Which, I don't know. That's just something that's really bothersome to me. A couple of other things that are odd in this episode. Let's talk about the villain and their plot. So they're basically sending this watch monster back in time to steal the Sealing Shuriken because they know where it is in the past. They just don't know where it is now. So they send it back to retrieve it and bring it back to the future so they can go ahead and destroy it. But speaking of Back to the Future, they are not thinking fourth dimensionally. I mean, seriously. You have a monster on your side who is capable of time travel at will. There's no limitation that's shown on them doing this. No problems of going back and forth about altering the timeline or anything crazy like that. And yet you send them back to the year 2005 to get the Shuriken. Why not send the monster back 444 years ago to warn them about, the ninjas, their uprising against our ultimate villain? Why not send back to the age of when grandfather was young and he was the last ninja? Why 2005? Why aren't they, when you have time travel and it's unlimited, then you should be doing more with it. I mean, again, Terminator, Back to the Future, these films have time travel, but they are limited in some way. Terminator, you can only send organic material back, which is why they can't send, Terminators that don't look human, okay? You get that. But there's no limitation here in time travel. I mean, how deadly and dangerous are our villains if they can do casual time travel without limitation? I mean, they could wreak so much havoc at this point, and why didn't they do that? Why is in this one mission, go back, steal the Shuriken? Why not go back and kill the last ninja? Go back and warn our master about this. Go back, and since this is an anniversary episode, why not go back and stop the very first Sentai team from forming? Why isn't stuff like that even considered? Because the time travel thing seems like, oh, we're opening up this great idea, there's a lot of things we can go ahead and do with this, and suddenly it's over like that. There's nothing to it. I mean, because you think let's say it's an anniversary series. They have time travel involved. Let's go back to the 1970s and stop the original Sentai. That would be the logical thing that would come to your mind. But no, let's go back 10 years ago, not even bothered to get ourselves involved with Magi Ranger, and then, come back to the present. I mean, if the Sealing Shuriken is or the finishing Shuriken is such a big deal, why not destroy it in the past? Or why not, throw it into the sun or go back to the moment of the Big Bang and throw it out so it can be destroyed? Something. You know what I'm saying? Do something creative with it. Now, ultimately, they don't actually find the Sealing Shuriken. It's a Shuriken from Ninja Red that they get by mistake. So the hunt is still on, and that means that this entire plot was completely pointless. Something else to note. I'm very confused about the Zord battle at the end, simply because they get two new Sealing Shurikens transformed into Nin Shurikens. Now, as we've established in a previous episode, it is said that the Shurikens revert to their natural form, or at least that's the dialogue that's implied, meaning that UFO Maru, Pan Maru, all those Marus, that's what they actually are. Okay, that's their natural form. So you're telling me that the natural form of these two Sealing Shurikens is of Kaku Ranger and Hurricane Ranger, specifically of the Red Rangers who happen to be teaching you at this point. I don't get that. I mean, you've established the rules, you've broken these rules to put these two Shurikens in there, which I doubt are going to be seen beyond this episode. Why wasn't this an episode where, Ninja Red and Hurricane Red call on their mecha? I mean, we've seen it in the crossover movies, the last one that we had where we had the three dinosaur teams together. They had all their mechas and Zords brought together, so why couldn't they do it here? And if I'm not mistaken, again, I haven't seen it, but I've read it, Sasuke, as Ninja Red, he has the ability to turn into his own Zord. Isn't that right? Isn't that what he's supposed to go ahead and do? So why didn't he join the battle as his own Zord? And why didn't Hurricane Red? Why didn't he call his Zord to fly on down and start shooting some lasers? I just find it curious that, again, The Stealing Shurikens happen to be these two specific guys that happen to be here, despite the fact that they've already had previous form, and that's probably it or not it. And they didn't get any new Zords in this episode, nor did the Red Rangers, because it's like, we'll help you out, we'll battle, and then suddenly they're giant. Okay, bye, good luck, have fun with that. That's seriously what it seems like here. And I think the last thing to note is at the very end, so after all is finished, Sasuke and Shina are talking, and we have an appearance by Grandfather and Aka Ranger. Now, it seems that this is not the original guy who voices Aka Ranger. There seems to be no information on it, but it does not sound like him, which is kind of odd. And a few things are kind of brought up in this conversation. First of all, the grandfather asks the three men to watch over his grandchildren until they are strong enough. Okay, on that alone, why are you asking them to do it? Isn't that your responsibility? Haven't you been watching over them to make sure that they get strong? Why are you asking these guys to go ahead and do that? I mean, is this establishing that you're going to be doing something later, that you're going to be going away to where you can't watch over them? I don't understand what you mean by this. And then Aka Ranger says that, yes, we will. We've watched over other Super Sentais before. Okay, my next question to this. What does watching over them mean exactly? Because were you watching over the Zoo Ranger when Bandora took the Zords away? Were you watching over the Dai Ranger where the giant dragon from outer space threatened to destroy the Earth? Were you watching over the Geki Ranger when they battled a god? You know, were you watching over, the Go Buster while they were battling Enter and Escape? What do you mean by watching over? Are you saying just sit back and watch them do this? Or are you saying if they get in trouble, we will actually intervene and help them? Because, as I've said before, it is my firm belief that Super Sentai, all 39 seasons and movies, they're all tied in together, that they exist within the same universe. Now, since this episode is within continuity of the series and is not a separate movie that can be ignored and dismissed, this episode establishes that all the Super Sentais did exist, they all exist within the same universe, and they are around there doing something. So what exactly are they going to do if the Ninninger get into trouble? And what do they consider trouble enough to get involved? Because consider the fact that when the Super Sentai get together, they cheered on the Turbo Rangers without actually doing anything. 5 of the Rangers got together when the Gala Ranger were fighting their anniversary villain. A Space Armada, they all got involved in defeating it. But again, all the other things, Long, the god who came down, to create the god of destruction out of Rio, they didn't bother to do anything with that. In the Go Buster versus Go Buster movie, that monster came down from space and killed the Go Buster. They didn't seem to really get involved with that. Again, the Zoo Ranger, their Zords disappearing in Bandora, landing on Earth. Nobody seemed to lift a finger when that happened. And again, when the giant space dragon came to destroy the planet, I didn't see anybody get involved with that either. So, I don't understand why this line of dialogue is in there if it doesn't make sense and you're likely not going to follow up on it. Because when you say something like that and you're Aka Ranger, that means we will watch over them. And by the end of the series, when the greatest threat ever comes and they all start dying or getting vaporized or some other crazy thing happens, we're going to step in and help them. That's what's implied, but that's not what's going to go ahead and happen. I mean, the thing I love about this episode is that it shows you that there is a bigger world out there than just our Ninninger bubble. That the Jetman and Flashman and Fiveman and Battle Fever Jane, all those, they exist out there somewhere, and there's this greater community of Rangers that are helping each other, which is why they came in as teachers. But you don't say we're going to watch over your team and make sure that they're okay if you don't actually mean it and you're actually going to go ahead and get involved. So a little rant on that, but it's just one line of dialogue that really bothered me at the end, because any normal time that you would say that, if this was, say, a comic book or a film franchise or anything like that, then you would expect them to go ahead and help him at any time, but because this is a television show, for whatever reason, they're not going to go ahead and do that. I don't know. It was just something kind of stupid there. So final thoughts. Okay, it was a good episode based on its premise. I do think it focused too much on Takaharu. He's still not changing as a character. I mean, I still think that our Blue Ranger, Yakumo, is the one that I'm least interested in at the moment. I'm really not liking him. Takaharu barely beats him out, but Takaharu actually has an interesting personality. Not to say it's not a grading one, but it's at least better than that. And please, can we get a Fuka episode here soon? I'd love to see her do something. But in any case, again, kind of standard fare. I think it was a good way to do a crossover episode and a decent anniversary episode. It's not wham bam, all 250 Sentai in the same place at the same time. I mean, they didn't have to go ahead and do that here, but really just having these people brought in, bring in the actors, bring in the characters, have them tie into the past history, I think it works out well. So, good episode, except for the lack in logic that I've stated in a number of instances, and again, just the character of Takaharu. I think if Takaharu was a stronger character, a more interesting character at this point, I wouldn't have all these criticisms about the episode and him in particular. But again, that's what I think. So what do you guys think? Is it a good episode? What did you think about the previous Rangers coming in? Did you have problems with it? Let me know. Leave a comment down below. Otherwise, we will return with Shinobi number 8 next week. And until then, thank you for listening. Have a good evening. And the tavern is now closed.